Okay, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you are. Welcome to the last day of our workshop on forest food systems and their contribution to food security and nutrition, and defining priorities for sustainable use in Asia and the Pacific, co-organized by FAO and the Korea Forest Service. So those of you who've been following the workshop for the last 2 days might know me already, but my name is Nara Lee. I am the Assistant FAO Representative at FAO Partnership and Liaison Office in the Republic of Korea. And I'm very pleased to moderate the fourth and the last technical session of this workshop. So in this technical session, we will focus on the necessary enabling environment for optimizing the benefits of forest food and systems for the agri-food systems transformation. So in this session, we will explore how policy can support diverse, nutritious, and environmentally sound forest food systems, but also how measures in one sector can undermine the practices in another. So for the last couple of days, what has been discussed is how agriculture and forestry sector often have competing agendas and how NWFP production can benefit from incentives for forest food production, much like already exists in the agriculture sector. So we'll explore and make a call to all countries to recognize the ways in which laws related to each other, to streamline laws, coordinate their implementation across government departments, and consider the negative impacts and unintended consequences of laws, and how policies and measures can support smallholder forest food systems, and also the opportunities for better production, better nutrition, better environment, and better lives, which can arise from better coordination. So as you know, we don't have all solutions yet, but we hope that together we can start to identify what it would be like to have agriculture, forestry, and nutrition sectors working together and side by side to improve food security and nutrition and to support sustainable food production. So in this session, we'll focus on our discussions and breakout groups around building elements and enabling environment for a collective vision for food systems, which integrates forest food, serving as a milestone we can set for ourselves of where we want to go and what we want to achieve. So before we start today's keynote speech and presentations, I'd like to now pass the floor to Sven for some introductory remarks based on what we've discussed so far. Please, Sven, take the floor.
Thank you very much, Nara, and hello to everybody. Good to see you for the last technical session. And that session is, as you said, Nara, will be very exciting because it brings a bit together the technical elements we had before. We talked about food and nutrition on the production systems and the value chains. And in these discussions, actually, we touched upon the enabling environment very much, you know, be it the laws, be it the institutional framework. And you mentioned one particular element of interest from our side is actually to link the forest sector with the agricultural sector. We also know that the agricultural sector is one of the drivers also of forest deforestation and degradation. So we need to bring these elements and these sectors together. And of course, maybe the forest food could be one of the glues, actually, because we are intervening and working together with the colleagues from agriculture. So we try to put this, you know, the competition rather positive, creating synergies, linkages between the sectors. And let's see, you know, during the discussion today, if we can there come up with a kind of a vision and some ideas for Asia Pacific, which would be very interesting for our future work in the region. So with this, I'm looking forward to the discussions, and back to you, Nara. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Sven. I also look forward to our discussion today. So then with that, I would like to actually start inviting the keynote speech speaker. So our keynote speaker for this workshop is Dr. Sarah Laird. Due to some urgent issues, she could not join us live, but she kindly sent us a pre-recorded video clip. So Clara, please, would you be able to start playing the video clip?
Diego. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sarah Laird, and I'll speak briefly today about wild product governance and the legal and policy context of forest food systems. I'll first briefly review the increased global policy interest in food systems, in particular food systems that conserve biodiversity, store carbon, and provide a range of environmental services. I'll then touch on some of the variation in forest food systems and products and challenges these pose for policymaking. I'll discuss information gaps and finish with a few recommendations. Today, global policymakers are actively looking for ways to develop or enhance biodiversity-friendly and climate-smart agriculture while providing high-quality and affordable diets. Forests and high-diversity smallholder and traditional food systems are emerging as part of a patchwork of solutions. Forest and wild food systems typically retain ecological health and species diversity. They make use of a wide range of species and habitats and provide ecosystem services like water quality, flood control, wildlife habitat, healthy soils, and carbon storage. And they are home to pollinators, which, in turn, are essential for food production. The Sustainable Development Goals clearly lay a foundation for these kinds of forest food systems, which can serve a wide range of the goals. They include food security, improved nutrition, sustainable management, promotion of sustainable use of terrestrial ecosystems. All of these goals are served by forest food systems. The UN Framework Convention on Climate Change increasingly addresses the critical role of forests for carbon storage and climate change adaptation, and the urgent need to explore and implement alternative food production systems. At the Conference of the Parties in 2021, world leaders issued a declaration on forests and land use that called for halting and reversing forest loss and degradation, including implement and, if necessary, redesign agricultural policies and programs to incentivize sustainable agriculture, promote food security, and benefit the environment. Again, at COP27 in 2022, governments stepped up action on cutting greenhouse gas emissions and adapting to climate change with a new 4-year plan to transform agriculture and address food security, and launched a new initiative on food and agriculture for sustainable transformation to scale up financing, to transform agriculture, lower emissions from the entire food chain while supporting economic and food security. The Global Biodiversity Framework, the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, agreed to at the 15th meeting of the Conference of the Parties of the CBD in 2022, expands upon the objectives of the CBD. Goal A specifically calls for an increase in the abundance of native wild species to healthy and resilient levels, and that the genetic diversity within populations of wild and domesticated species is maintained. Action-oriented targets address the use and conservation of native wild and domesticated species and indigenous peoples and local communities' rights to territories and customary management practices. Forest, tree, and wild product-based food systems can play an important role in a wide range of global policy processes underway today. Forest food systems provide critical trade and subsistence goods around the world and can be an important source of cash income for rural communities, providing funds for schools, medicines, and other purchased items. Forest foods or non-timber forest products more broadly are traded in local, regional, and global markets of various types. In many regions, the largest and most diverse use of forest foods is for subsistence by rural communities. The diversity of forest food systems creates challenges for effective law and policy. A law that supports sustainable and equitable local and regional trade will naturally be very different from a law that regulates global and commodity trade. Forest food species in international trade, global markets, for example, they have very unique opportunities and challenges when it comes to law and policy, quite different from those species used for subsistence or in local or regional trade. Challenges include, as we see here, shifts in market demand, fickle markets driven by consumer fads and new research that raise safety and efficacy concerns, as well as difficulties supplying sudden booms in demand. Opportunities include certification and marketing programs, corporate social responsibility, and other voluntary approaches that inform consumers about raw material sourcing through product labeling and can provide communities with access to markets and premium prices. However, these approaches require uniform, often global standards that fit poorly with forest foods in local and regional trade, which tend to be ecologically and culturally diverse, geographically dispersed, and each species might have a relatively low value, making the costs of certification prohibitive. Forest food systems governance should be situated within the wider range of laws that directly and indirectly impact them. This ecosystem of laws includes natural resource, agriculture, forestry, land tenure, transportation, intellectual property, quality control, and others. It also includes regional and international laws and policies like trade agreements, CITES, and the conventions on biodiversity and climate change. It is important that understanding of the existing regulatory ecosystem surrounding forest and tree food is part of the policy formulation process. Enabling policies and legislative frameworks can strengthen existing systems of traditional use and support the contributions of forests, trees, and wild species to more biodiverse, nutritious, environmentally sound food systems. However, it is also important to consider the negative impacts and unintended consequences produced by policies outside this sector, including negative subsidies, and conversely, how approaches in one sector could have mutually beneficial effects on others. When customary law has broken down to a significant degree or outside commercial pressure has intensified beyond the carrying capacity of traditional measures, governments can offer important and necessary levels of regulation. But when customary law is strong, it can often serve as an effective, accepted, and nuanced approach, integrating local cultural, ecological, and economic conditions in ways that suit the diversity of forest food systems and products. Governments should explore policy frameworks that integrate customary law and governance systems. Access and benefit sharing is part of the international legal ecosystem that might impact forest and tree-based foods. Under the Convention on Biodiversity, forest foods and non-timber forest products were not originally envisioned as part of ABS. The focus was on genetic resources used in high-tech sectors like pharmaceuticals and biotechnology. However, over the years, some governments have expanded the scope of ABS to include biotrade, raw materials and commodity products sold in bulk like medicinal plants, cosmetic ingredients, and functional foods. ABS has added yet another layer of regulation to an already confusing mix of measures that impact these products. And in some countries, it has produced unintended consequences. Things to keep in mind while working on forest food policy include, first, true consultation, an iterative, ongoing, and engaging process with the full range of stakeholders, including farmers, harvesters, producers, traders, companies, government, researchers, NGOs, and others. True consultation leads to more informed and effective policies that reflect the real needs and priorities of local groups who sometimes can be marginalized from the policy process. And it helps to ensure policies are widely accepted and implemented. Second is the importance of strategy and coordination. Laws for forestry and wild products have not typically resulted from a systematic and strategic approach, and instead were usually an ad hoc response to a crisis of overharvesting or optimistic estimates of tax revenue should informal activities be made more formal. But these laws, like any other, need clear objectives and should grow from a strategy based on research and information. Coordination of activities across government departments and building institutional capacity within government to effectively implement laws is also needed. Collecting data and monitoring the use of forest and tree-based foods and systems and associated use of wild biodiversity is also crucial to informing decisions, policies, and legislation. A recent analysis found almost 6 billion global users of non-timber forest products, and some of these products have markets in the hundreds of millions of US dollars. However, there are large gaps in our understanding of the value of global trade, regional and local trade, and subsistence forest food systems. Even these studies, the 6 billion global users, identify numerous ways that data collection could be improved. A number of studies have illustrated the value of forest foods and NTFPs, but they're often using very different methodologies in different regions with different scope and intentions behind the studies. Even data for species with very large global markets like maple syrup or rattan or Brazil nuts is not comprehensive. An important next step could be global and national level collaboration on common methodologies and data collection to better value local, regional, and global trade and subsistence forest food systems, and to better understand how benefits are shared and the value of these systems to local and national groups. Just going back for 1 second, at a national level, it's also important to look into the ecology and management side of non-timber forest products and forest food systems, social and producer networks, processing, and existing legal and regulatory frameworks as part of a kind of information gathering phase. Here we have carrots, which often work better than sticks with these kinds of forest-based systems. Carrots would include incentives, supportive legal frameworks, help with marketing, processing, support for producer groups, and sticks might be quotas and taxes and restrictions. When species experience sudden commercial demand or prolonged unsustainable harvesting, however, then sticks and a combination of approaches are usually required. Moving forward, first, protect the forest. We need to collect better data, build institutional capacity, have effective consultations and engagement from a range of stakeholders, understand the policy ecosystem, understand the central importance of land and resource rights ensure institutional coordination. One piece that People and Plants has been working on with FAO recently is developing case studies to help us dig more deeply into how markets, benefits, sustainability, nutrition, and food security converge on particular cases, and to develop solid, in-depth data, which is currently often lacking. So at this point, I think I will wrap up because I've run a bit over my time. But I'd just like to say this is a very promising development, and there's a lot that the policy framework could do to support forest food systems and provide more nutritious and secure food while conserving biodiversity, forests, and storing carbon. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I hope you enjoyed listening to her informative presentation. I think actually it was a really great summary of wild product governance covering international and regional and even national legal systems and related effects and consequences and more. And also empathize the importance of true consultation, coordination, and needs for data collection and information, managing more incentives, building capacity, and more things that we actually discussed already. And this was based on her extensive experience and research in the area. So since she's not here with us live, then we'll go ahead and move on to the flash presentations of today. So we have 4 presentations ready for us. So our first speaker is Mr. Jung-Suk Choi from the Republic of Korea, who will present an issue that has come up again and again over the last few days, which is data and statistics. So Ms. Choi is the general manager in the Economics and Statistics Division at the Korea Forestry Promotion Institute. She holds a master's in public finance and design and engineering. Mr. Choi, please take the floor.
Nice to meet you. My name is Jung-Suk Choi. I am General Manager of Economics and Statistics Division in Korea Forestry Promotion Institute. Today, I'm going to introduce statistics related to NWFP in Korea. This is the order of today's presentation. I will begin with the introduction to the statistics, followed by NWFP production, and finally, NWFP income. Let's start with forestry statistics. The Korea Forest Service has set entrusted COFP with conducting a statistical survey in forest. The production of forest production and special crop production survey are related NWFP production. The production of forest product survey covers the production of 145 items across the following categories. In 2021, the total production value of forestry products in Korea was 7,198 billion won. This is NWFP of Korea. In 2021, the value of NWFP production in Korea was 2,332 million Korean won. There is a growing interest in health and well-being, as well as increasing demand for environmentally sustainable forest products. This page lists the main categories of NWFP and the status of items in each category. NWFP is more profitable than agricultural products, so an increasing number of people are taking up cultivation. The order of importance for NWFP categories is as follows: medicinal herbs, nuts and fruit, wild vegetables, landscaping, mushrooms, and byproducts. Cultivation and harvesting are the primary methods used for producing NWFP, with many producers implementing sustainable practices to minimize their environmental impact. Next, I'll explain NWFP production in South Korea. First, let's discuss medicinal herbs. In 2021, South Korea produced 25,687 tons of medicinal herbs, which was a 3% decrease from the previous year. The monetary value of medicinal herbs production in 2021 was 6,337 million Korean won, a 3% decrease from the previous year. The picture shows major medicinal herbs in South Korea. The second category of nuts and fruit. South Korea's nuts and fruit production totals 259,35 tons in 2021, a 10% increase compared to the previous year, and the value of production rose by 11% compared to the 2020. Thanks to the favorable weather condition, major nuts and fruits such as chestnut, bitter cinnamon, Korean raspberry experienced the increased production in 2021. The picture shows nuts and fruits in South Korea. The third category is white vegetable. The production of white vegetables in 2021 was 33,035 tons, a 5% decrease from the previous year. In 2021, the production value of wild vegetable was 4,071 million Korean won, a 3.4% increasing from the 2020. The picture showed wild vegetable in South Korea. The fourth category is mushroom. In 2021, mushrooms production decreased compared to the previous year due to high temperature and precipitation in July and August. The value of mushroom production was 2,261 million Korean won, an 11.5% decrease from 2020. Okra mushrooms made a majority of mushroom production, but their production decreased in 2021 due to unfavorable climate conditions. Picture shows a pie mushroom and okra mushroom. The third chapter focuses on the income of a household producing NWFP. The first item is income of a household that grows chestnut trees. In 2021, the income from chestnut cultivation per hectare was 1,689 Korean won, which represents 12% increase compared to the previous year. The main sales channel for chestnut were 65% through agricultural cooperation and 50% through direct sales to customers. The second item is the income from growing walnut. In 2021, the income per hectare of walnut cultivation was 8,831,000 won, an 18.4% decrease from the previous year. This is photos of walnut cultivation. And the last item is the income from growing alchemy mushroom. The last growing alchemy mushroom, due to the impact of adverse weather, the yield per 10,000 rows were 2,667 kilograms in 2021, a 21% decrease compared to the previous year. The income per 10,000 logs from okra mushrooms in 2021 was 3,664 Korean won, a 15.4% decrease from 2020. The main sales channel for okra mushroom were direct to customer, agricultural cooperative, and reseller. And next, this is a reference site for Korean statistics. And this is the last of my presentation. I hope this presentation has been informative and helpful. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Choi, for your informative presentation. It was indeed a great opportunity for us to have a better understanding on non-food forest products related statistics of the Korea the Republic of Korea. So like for the last couple of days, actually, we talked about the importance of statistics and information. And actually, it was indeed very impressive to witness how the ROK has been actually dealing with it. I'm pretty sure actually the participants have lots of questions to her, and especially on the supporting policy and measures that make these statistics possible in the Republic of Korea. So dear participants, please feel free to leave your questions and comments in the chat room while we are proceeding with the second presenter. So our second presenter is Dr. Laksmi Phubin-sok, Deputy Director at the Agriculture and Rural Development Research Center in Laos. Dr. Phubin-sok will talk about economics of NTFPs for ethnic minorities in northern Laos. Dr. Phubin-sok holds a PhD in Rural Development and Management from China Agricultural University of Beijing, and she returned to Lao PDR as a researcher for Agriculture Economic and Rural Development Research Center. She has more than 12 years of working experience in agriculture, economic, and rural development research, specializing in agricultural policy, working with rural community-based fisheries management in a high poverty area and key area for natural resources management and fish conservation nationwide, particularly on the upland regions in Lao PDR, as well as other topics such as Mekong fish genetic and fish biodiversity, NTFPs, community development. With this, I would love to give the floor to Dr. Phubin-sok.
Okay, I am Laksmi from NAFI. Thank you, Julia, the one who invited me to present to join this workshop. Okay. Today I would like to present about economic of non-timber forest product for ethnic minority in northern Laos. But I will not focus in technical information. I will like a brief only for general information. Yes. In Laos, especially non-timber forest product provides provide a range of substance need and are the main source of the case income for ethnic minority household in northern Laos. And they also make a significant contribution to the economic, to the country economy. According to the annual export volume of non-timber forest product is considerably high, more than 700 edible non-timber forest product species, and more than 238 edible plants and 470 animals have been recorded so far, and about 400 plants have been reported and used as a medicinal plant by Lao people. And 100 non-timber forest product species are considered as commercial forest products. Today, I would like to present only two kinds of non-timber forest product commercialization, like Phuoc Mueang is in Lao language, but in scientific name is Bromeliad malabarico, and the second is pepper mulberry. In scientific name is Bosnia papilifera. This picture I would like to show you a good example of successful domestication of a forest product from Phuoc Mueang and pepper mulberry. This factory is in Luang Prabang province. And this finger, I would like to show you the tender who do the business of Phuoc Mueang and pepper mulberry to domestication for a forest product factory. They have the first way farmer who farmer or village near the factory, they can sell their product to factory directly. And the second tender also, they can sell their product to the factory. And the third way is middleman. When middlemen buy the product from farmer or tender, after that they will sell to the factory. And this picture would like to show you like selling and buying เปลือกเมือก and paper mulberry in รวงน้ำทาว province. This I would like to show you the location of เปลือกเมือก and paper mulberry that we export to the boarding country. As we know in Laos, we have 7 provinces in northern part. Lai Luang, Phabang, Udom Sai, Bokeo, Luang Nam Tha province. We export both เปลือกเมือก and paper mulberry to Thailand. And also we export to China and to Vietnam. Sorry, I don't know. Okay. And this picture, I would like to show you about transportation for เปลือกเมือก and paper mulberry to China, Thailand, and Vietnam. Yes, as we know, the northern of Laos subsets a diverse range of any group, biodiversity, and ecosystem, especially in the highland. Incidentally, the highest incidence of poverty is also found in highland area in northern part. And more than 70% of the people, especially Indigo people, live in rural area and relies on agriculture and forest product for their livelihoods. According to my research in 2011, as we know, we have 7 provinces in northern part, but according to the limits of budget and time, I just do my research in Luang Prabang province, the border with China. And in 2010, we found that the price of เปลือกเมือก and paper mulberry is allowed $3 to $7 per kg. But right now, as I checked with my friend yesterday, is more than $12 to $15 per kg right now. And a volume estimated more than $500 in 2010. This information only one province in northern part as รวงน้ำทาว province, the border with China, Laos and China. The available of non-timber forest product is threatened by overexploitation and increasing deforestation and landscape degradation, and the sticking trend in non-timber forest product resources is the decline of some commercial species. The creation of this new economic zone is often accompanied by the large-scale replacement of forest land and traditional subsidies by rubber, banana, and tea, which had been exclusively promoted by private investors from neighboring countries and the Lao governments. This threatens the livelihood based on many communities that depend on forests as source for food, medicine, construction material, cultural, ecological service, and cash incomes. The increasing challenge facing the major actors along the non-timber forest product value. Uncontrolled harvesting had led to the dependence of the wine productions, planting of milk and paper mulberries will assume regeneration and sustainability. For the landless and the land poor household, which form the poorest group in the community, the ability to shift from collection to cultivation of the milk and paper mulberry is constrained by lack of the land. Even for owner of larger land earlier, the expansion of milk and paper mulberry cultivation is difficult, mainly due to limited availability of shade, moist habitats suitable for the establishment of the plantation inside the forest. This is exhibited by the fact that the government and private investors, particularly from neighboring countries like China, are aggressively promoting rubber and banana plantation, which results in escape deforestation. Right now, the cultivation of milk and paper mulberry can be an option for rural people with land rights and an ability to build the necessary investment costs, namely for seeding and labor. Because traditionally, collection from the vine had been a more valuable option for the poorest part of the rural population that do not have access to land and capital. And also, yes, with the ongoing dependence of the vine, milk and paper mulberry population as a consequence of the expansion of rubber plantation. This opportunity is rapidly demand shifting from the collection to cultivation of milk and paper mulberry could be a solution that deliver income when collection from the vine become impossible. Yes, that's all for my presentation. If you need more information in technical, I can send you my research paper. Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Probinsok, for your comprehensive presentation. It was indeed a great opportunity to learn about the role of NTFPs in enhancing livelihood of the minority groups in the region, with the specific examples of two different types of NWIP, Phuang Mok and paper mulberry, as well as related challenges. So while the participants leave your comments in the chat room or questions in the chat room, I'd like to introduce the next speaker, Dr. Khoa from the Vietnam University of Forestry, who will present the overview of medical plant development under the forest canopy, reality and recommendations. Dr. Khoa is a forestry engineer and has been working in the forestry sector for more than 25 years as principal investigator for many ministerial and provincial level R&D projects, mostly focused on forest restoration, NTFPs, forest hydrology and watershed management, geospatial technology application in forestry, REDD+, environmental and climate change impacts, and carbon sequestration. He holds a Master's of Forestry and a PhD of Earth Science. He's also adjunct associate professor of Department of Forestry of Michigan University, and he is a recipient of third prize of the Vietnam Fund for supporting technological creations. Dr. Khoa, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you well.
Okay, I can share my screens.
Yes, please.
This one. Okay, good morning, everyone. So I would like to introduce you to my presentation on an overview of the medicinal plant development under the forest canopy in Vietnam, reality and recommendations. And my presentations will, include international and national legislation for medicinal plant development, and the second contains the current forest, and last one, a way forward and recommendations. And the first content about legislation. For international, we have a global strategy for plant conservation. And the second one is CITES. And the third one, Convention on Biological Diversity and Kyoto Protocol. And of course, Washington Convention. And for national, we have law on forestry. This is very, very important and directly control the development of the medicinal plant under the forest canopy. And the second one is law on biodiversity. And the third one, law on medicine. And especially for law on forestry, both Article 57 and Article 60 allowed to cultivate medicinal plant under the forest canopy as long as not affecting the forest conditions. And about the second content, the current forest and medicinal plant development under the forest canopy in Vietnam. So about the current forest in Vietnam up to December 2021, so we have 17.74 million hectares, including bamboo forest, 2%, mixed wood bamboo forest, 11%, and evergreen forest, 87%. And for plantation, we have occupied 31%, and while legend forest occupies 69%. And for production forest, we have 7.9 million hectares. And protection forest, we have 4.7 million hectares, and special use forest, 2.2 million hectares. So for cultivating medicinal plant under the forest canopy is allowed to conduct only in protection forest and production forest, not allowed in special use forest. And here you can see some kind of the main plants, medicinal plant under the forest canopy in Vietnam. Yes, you can see in this table, 16 species. And here some kind of very, very popular and the high value of the medicinal plant under the forest canopy in Vietnam. So for example, green cardamom and amomums or morinda officinalis, and ginseng, especially ginseng, many ginseng species and others. For example, Camellia cristata, Micania trunkinensis, etc. And here's some kind of very good model, example of the model of traditional medicinal plant cultivation under the forest canopy in the ethnic minority, for example, in the Ba Vi district, Hanoi, in Lang Sơn province, and in Kon Tum in Highland, Central Highland province. And the third content, some challenges for medicinal plant development under the forest canopy in Vietnam. So of course, the first one is like a fund, technical processes, protocols, administration procedures, and incomplete legislation. And the forestry law allows the forest owners to develop medicinal plant under the protection and production forest canopy, but do not allow them to associate or lease of the forest environment to other entities to do so. So what does it mean? It means that the company enterprises cannot invest because they have funding, but they do not have forest. And who has the forest, but they are lack of funding. So this is very, very important barrier. And we suggest this one should be amended very soon maybe this year or earlier next year for the forestry law. And the third one, like fine processing and incomplete production chains, and of course, like market information and access awareness. And the last, maybe the next one's fragmented, scattered, and unplanned, not sustainable practices. For example, how to protect the soil, site condition, and biodiversity under the forest canopy. And the fourth one, a way forward and the recommendation. So we are very optimistic that we have a legal base for development of the medicinal plant under the forest canopy in Vietnam. For example, the decision 1976 by the Prime Minister dated 2018, and also Vietnam's forestry strategy development for the period 2021-2030 also promotes the development of the medicinal plants, particularly in the forest canopy. And some recommendations that yes, it's necessary to make the development links based on the value chain from planting to processing high-value products. And the second one, developing multi-use forest pilot models for demonstration. And the third one, very important, to integrate with ecotourism. And the next one, allowed cooperation. Association leads up the forest environment to raise funding for developing the medicinal plant and the forest canopy. And investigating, assessing the current situation, and developing completed production chains, fine processing, developing a multilateral diverse market space. This is very, very important. And establishing technical processes to ensure a protection of the site condition, biodiversity under the forest canopy, and building guidelines, best practices, and models for demonstration and for real application, and raising awareness and developing a database portal and information system for the users. And I come up with a proposed solution to build some good models of piloting best practices on medicinal plant development under the forest canopy in different forest and socio-economic conditions throughout the country. And this is very important for demonstration and to synthesize lessons. And last but not least, thank you very much for the attention.
Thank you so much for your informative presentation. Thanks to you, we will able to learn about the medicinal plants development under the forest canopy, covering relevant legislations at the international and regional level, sharing some successful models of the main medicinal plants in Vietnam, and relevant challenges, including fund administration and legal issues and limited value chain, together with some recommendation. Thank you so much. Now, thank you. And I've been seeing actually a very active discussion among the participants and presenters through the chat room. So please keep communicating with each other using the chat room. So finally, I would like to invite Mr. Lakhu Prasad, Inspector General from the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change from the Government of India, who will give us an overview of India's agricultural price policies and implications for non-wood forest products. Mr. Prasad, if you are ready, over to you.
Thank you so much. I hope I am audible and my slide is visible.
Yeah, we can hear you clearly. We can see clearly. Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction. Just wanted to give a background of the forestry sector in India. We have approximately around 21% of the landscape is on forest cover. And apart from that, another around 27% of the terrestrial landscapes, apart from the forest cover, is under some form of area-based conservation, including the OECMs. And we have a vast network of protected areas in terms of high biodiversity areas like sanctuaries and national parks, which form approximately around 5.3% of the area. And we have been practicing a lot of ecosystem-based conservation in terms of in the high biodiversity rich areas. And when we talk about the landscape, its coexistence, we have a lot of indigenous communities, tribal populations staying in these areas across the various provinces and states. Around 8% plus is the tribal population in the country. We have around 104 million tribal population, and they are all dependent on the NTFPs, these forest products which come out, and quite a substantial amount of outputs in terms of the value of these commodities comes out, which directly impacts livelihoods and their incomes. Just to give a snapshot of how the portfolio looks up, there are hundreds of non-timber forest products that are coming out of these forest areas, whether it is food, whether it is medicinal plants, and a lot of host of areas. And these are some of the main portfolio items which come out as whether as food, whether as fiber, whether it is leaf plates and other medicinal items. In fact, traditionally, as per the existing laws in the country, the local communities, the tribal communities, the forest dwellers, they have been given, the collection of the non-timber forest products vests with them. In 2006, the government of India came out with an act in order to see that the rights of the local communities, the tribal dwellers, are actually protected in terms of the collection, ownership, marketing of these non-timber forest products. So we came out with the Forest Rights Act. It's not only for the collection and use of the non-timber forest products, even for their dwelling purpose, these rights were given by the government of India by enabling a legislation for it. And then on coming to in 2013, because over a period of time we found that the non-timber forest products which are collected is also marketed either by traders or by middlemen, or also by private companies, and also by the government sector. So sometimes we found that the value of the NTFPs collected at the primary collector levels, they may not be able to get so much of value as vis-a-vis the final marketed product which is coming up. So the chunk of the profits may also go to the other processing and the corporate sector. So in 2013, the government came out with a minimum support price program scheme for the non-timber forest products, and many of these commodities were actually supported by the government by a minimum support price. Now, this entire scheme was actually is currently hubbed in the Ministry of Tribal Affairs, which is at the national level, and there is this national level cooperative, which is called the TriFed, which actually operates this entire program scheme with the state governments, and at the primary level, at the village level, or at the provincial level, there are self-help groups, tribal level cooperatives, federations, groups of individuals who actually collect the NTFPs. They actually form this entire value chain, and that's how this scheme is implemented. In terms of the price which is provided for those non-timber forest products, currently around 87 non-timber forest products are covered under this particular scheme. The price is completely flexible based on the market conditions, based on the demands. The minimum support price is fixed. So whenever the state governments, or at the district level, at the provincial level, they find that the the price of some of these commodities, which is being accessed by, are abnormally low, then the state government chips in and procures that particular commodity, so that at least there is a price stabilization. The intent of the government is not to procure the whole thing, because we just want to see that the price stabilizes, and so that the markets actually takes it forward. And so far we have been seeing that these price stabilization mechanisms have been playing out quite well. Under this program, the government also provides a procurement support, wherein the state level, the provincial level agencies, nodal agencies, and at the district level, they procure the non-timber forest products whenever the price falls at below the threshold minimum support price levels at the local markets. Then they have provisions for storage of these NTFPs and also going for processing. There is also a lot of value addition which happens from after the procurement is over, because the entire the price availability mechanisms back to the primary producers only happens when the entire chain is actually allowed to be run, and a substantial portion of the incomes arriving out of these value additions goes back to the primary collectors. So there are a lot of various interventions which the provincial governments do to take up these value additions in terms of centers for processing. We call it as Bandhan Kendras. There are centers where they do the processing. They have been given machinery, packaging items, and so on. There are separate outlets, retail outlets set up at various levels, whether it is at the main district levels, or at the block levels, or at the state levels. A lot of facilitation is given to set up marketing outlets for these products, so that the commodities actually get good exposures directly from the self-help groups federation levels. Branding is also another part of this entire exercise which happens, because normally these communities will not be able to go and access markets and the branding requirements which normally the corporates do. So the government also facilitates them in branding and in marketing, whether it's through online marketing or also through off-the-shelf marketings. There are also other areas like food parks being developed. Apart from this entire government intervention, we also have the full range of private sector which actually accesses these foods, these commodities either through the government procurement or directly through the self-help groups and their federations marketing it to the corporates. So that's a parallel the branding and the marketing of these commodities which actually happens. But we also find challenges whenever the issues of certification comes in, because some of these commodities, the value will not be so high to meet the certification standards. So sustainable forest management is one thing which India has been following through long-term working plans, management plans, but there is this international growing issue of certification through private entities, which actually becomes very costly sometimes for these local communities and self-help groups to actually adhere to. So thank you for listening to this scheme of minimum support price to NTFPs in India. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Praset, for your informative presentation. You presented India's enabling environment for NTFP, including policy framework for price support to stabilize the price, institutional structure to provide support to tribal communities, and the support throughout the value chain, as well as sharing some relevant challenges. Thank you so much. Well, so thank you for presenters for these wonderful presentations. The presentations will definitely serve as a good basis for our breakout sessions. But before that, before we'll let the presenters go, I'd love to actually open the floor for a few questions. Due to time limit, I'd love to actually take 2 different questions from the floor. So please use the hand raise function if you have any question and if you want to take the floor. Okay, I definitely see that there has been various and very active discussions and Q&A sessions going on in the chat room. Okay, so if we don't have anyone who wants to take the floor, then I will just move to the next part, and I will now pass the floor to Julia, who will briefly go over the final survey result related to the topic before we kick off our breakout groups. Julia,
Thank you,
over
Nara.
to you.
Thank you. Just before I share my screen, Diego is going, he just shared in the chat a quick survey. As you know, the issue of terms comes up a lot, so we just want to do a quick poll and see what term your institution or country uses. As you know, this is essential for data collection. I'll give you a couple of minutes here. So the link is in the chat. You just click on it and fill it out. Okay, so far NTFP is in the lead. Very close. Give it another minute for anyone else who wants to join the poll. Okay, so it looks very close. We'll get into this also in the slides I'm about to share. We asked the same question in the questionnaire, and NTFPs came out as a main term used. And unsurprisingly, it's in the lead now. Okay, in the interest of time, I'll go ahead and share my screen while you can keep answering that poll. Okay, very briefly, some results of the questionnaire. Again, the issue of terms comes up constantly, and we've heard all sorts of different terms being used. The results of the survey indicate that NTFPs, so non-timber forest products, and wild foods are the most popular. But there's all sorts of other terms being used: wild edible plants, indigenous edible plants, bush foods. I think that's typical of Australia, if I'm not mistaken. Non-wood forest products a bit less. So it matters to us, and especially for data collection, because with all these terms, it's very difficult to harmonize data and to really get an idea of the contribution of these products and species to livelihood, food security, and nutrition. This is a core area of our work with different statistical entities. So we're curious to dig in a little deeper into this topic with anyone collecting data to really try to harmonize and move forward on this issue. A lot of information, so thank you, from the survey on the different policies in different countries. Vietnam, we heard a little bit about this today in Dr. Kwa's presentation. We have a lot of interesting and different policies coming out of New Zealand, Philippines mentioned, Korea. We just saw the presentation from India, and we'll add that as well. So a diverse mix of policies stemming from different sectors, biodiversity, forestry, medicine, health, just to show how complex the topic is. You identified several challenges and a lot of priority actions. So again, this issue of lack of intersectoral policies came out, lack of interest and political will, really, lack of regulatory frameworks, lack of incentives to conserve forests, no agency to oversee the development of forest foods, or rather there's so many end uses, so sometimes it falls between the cracks, and no sufficient stakeholders for involvement. Some priority actions you identified was, again, this idea of cross-sectoral policies and coordination and streamlining laws across ministries. This one's interesting: integrate mitigation potential into policy documents, clear guidelines and standards, and again, recognizing that value of forest foods, which continues to come up even in the previous technical sessions, inclusive and participatory processes, collaboration and partnerships. So these are some of the priority actions identified. We also asked about statistics and data and who collects data. We saw a wonderful presentation earlier today from Korea, which collects all sorts of different production data, in particular information on income. So this is crucial to us because right now we have this patchwork of information and trying to work with you to really understand who's collecting the data, which agencies. It may be forestry, but sometimes it's the health sector, sometimes it's medicine. So it's not easy to identify who's collecting the data and where to get that information from. We have some information from China as well, Australia, all sorts of what they refer to as native foods. So again, issue of definitions comes up, and then Japan as well provided some interesting information. So you can see different countries to a different extent do collect data and information, and we hope to dig into this a bit deeper also in the breakouts. And then also some specific challenges and priorities related to data collection. So developing those capacities, fine-tuning and harmonizing that terminology and definitions. Consumption seems to be a big black hole. So just really a major gap. We do have a little bit on production, a bit more on trade, a few things on resource assessment. We saw that yesterday as well, but consumption, not so much. So in need of addressing, and then priority actions, capacity development, functioning data collection system, and collaboration between different statistical agencies. So that's wrapped up the summary of the survey. And I think we'll break out into groups now.
Julia,
Yes,
you're ready to open the rooms?
thank you.
You're welcome.
I think we have almost everyone here. I'm sorry that we are behind the schedule, but it's very difficult to stick to the original plan when we get so excited about our discussion topics always, right? Okay, so I hope you had a very constructive discussion during the last breakout session, exchanging ideas with each other. And also, I hope that you were able to identify one volunteer to share the discussion results with all of us. Okay, as we have two different teams, I would like to invite the group one's moderator, Sven and Diego, together with the presenter. Over to you, Sven and Diego.
Yes, thanks, Nara. Yeah, not a volunteer, but he he was willing to help us. So thanks a lot, Logan. So I'm gonna share my screen now. And yeah, we're gonna start, of course, with the vision. 1 second, please. So Logan, please, from Australia.
From New Zealand.
Oh yeah, sorry. Logan, I think that you are muted, or we cannot hear you.
How about now?
There you go.
All right. Yeah, so our first point on describing a desired future scenario for the next 10 to 20 years. Right, so we got forest foods are reflected in the country's development and food security strategies. Forest foods are 50% or above in diets of communities living near and in forests, and 30% for others. Forest foods are a significant part of national and policies and programs to effectively improve health. New Zealand specific here, but see a transition of working forests back to indigenous ecosystems and the beginnings of forest food systems, markets, and some learning. Very little is known about New Zealand forest food systems, which from a brief discussion turns out to be more than just New Zealand. And then preferential options for forest foods by consumers. Upscaling of production, processing, storage infrastructure for forest foods is needed for it to be cost effective. They should play a central role in revaluing forest systems in different non-dollar terms to influence monetary economic systems, things such as global diversity and food security strategies and initiatives. Forest foods must support a world where we put future generations of nature and people at the center rather than profits. Could you go back to the top right, please? Oh yes, this was about national action plans that I don't actually know much about. So just forest food research absorbs a good proportion of funding and is widely accepted as a necessary supply of nutritious food when global demand increases. National action plans have been developed widely. We could do with it a lot of that here in New Zealand, that funding especially, just for our lack of knowledge on most things. Inclusive value chains which provide benefits for farmers, producers, especially, as well as others in the value chain. I think we're done that slide, maybe. Who collects the data on this sort of stuff in your country, right? So New Zealand, no one but the government agencies are responsible. Ministry of Primary Industries and DOC, which is Department of Conservation. Māori manage their own food cupboards at a site-specific level. Korea seems to be blowing it out of the water. They actually have a Korea Forestry Promotion Institute, which is in charge of data collection, which has been presented on. I might have missed it. Yes, and some forest foods are also counted by agricultural authorities. Seems to be a trend of forestry departments being the ones that gather this information. Forest research institutes for medicinal plants and government statistics offices. Indonesia, forest data including forest foods, KLHK, Ministry of for the Environment. But it's lumped in with all Society of Forestry nutrition data is taken by Ministry of Health. New body is the Food Security Body. Again, no one really. We had the Forest Service collecting some data, but they were disbanded in the 80s. And then Māori use iwi management or environmental management plans to manage their food cupboards. Right, here's some challenges. Right. But challenges surrounding the use of forest foods from an institutional policy legislative perspective. We need some coordination with national food security and food diversity bodies within local governments. There's the issue around food safety from forest foods, ensuring uptake when introducing new diets. And it's competing with the immense fast spread and distribution from highly processed foods. Even in isolated areas, they seem to be outcompeting forest food systems. Undefined ownership of resource. Challenge in New Zealand is just, there's no real interest in restoring native ecosystems because there's no real value behind it. Māori, however, are trying their best. Priority actions would you identify? Right, first one, this was actually me, restoration of forest systems and removal of introduced mammals. I don't know how to do that at a policy level, but that's just what we need to do. And then make sure policies are harmonized and easy to implement, especially for food systems, transformation strategies, and forest foods. Policy and program supported inclusive multi-stakeholder platforms at national and local levels that will create, implement, and monitor relevant food programs, mainstream them into existing programs. Global action initiative in Western nations, we must advocate for Indigenous people, leadership and partnership with governments to respond to the action. Inclusion of forest foods and food security short strategies. And developing more recipes, improving processing technologies. I think that's all from us, is it? We didn't have very much discussion.
Thanks, Logan. Back to you, Nara.
Okay, thank you so much, the team one. Well, I think actually you had really good amount of time like discussing it with each other because you asked for 5 more minutes. This was very impressive. So, okay, thank you so much for your report. And so if anyone from group 1 would like to add any points? If not, then let us move to the second group. Actually, I was in the second group and we had a very interesting discussion indeed, and asking lots of questions to Ms. Choi about NWFP and the related statistics of the Republic of Korea. So now I actually would like to give the floor to Julia. Please take the floor together with the presenter.
Thank you, Nara. So I'll share my screen. Can you see that?
Yes, we can.
We'll start with challenges. We'll end with the best. So Chen, I think Chen volunteered again.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chen.
Okay, so the challenges that the group or was that some of us feel that there's too much emphasis on commercialization the species. I think we need to depend on balancing the needs, the goals, and objectives so that it's not just skewed towards money making. Quality assurance, quality control is important. Policymakers ignore the whole of system and focus too much on one good end. I mean, there's justified reasons for that, but still, big part. issues and challenges that local communities, indigenous people are facing. There's lack of priority towards monitoring legality and illegality of species use in forest foods. There's a lack of specific policy for selected NPFPs. There are few evidences about forest foods for establishing policies. That critical, I think, if there's lack of evidence and information, then the policies may not grounded in reality. There is little consulting with local communities getting inputs, especially the indigenous people's local community, because outsiders tend to think that we know best. So it is something that we haven't really talked about very much, I think. Workshop. A bit more exploring this particular issue. There is a need to prepare local communities for larger scale cultivation, so they won't be left behind. Governments with the land that they equip outside this particular sector. And a lot of times we are paying lip service to consulting with IPLC, no consultation. Many forest plants, potential as forest foods are considered by the current laws restrict access to patient issues. That is a challenge as well as conservation and protection is getting a lot of support. Partly because of climate change issues and impacts, everyone thinks that we need to protect more instead of actually trying to use them sustainably together with the relevant stakeholders. Paying lip service. That's done. I think that's all the challenges, which is a lot to unpack. And what are the priority actions? The group came up with, well, data, a lot of things about data. We need good data, we need good collection methods, and we need interagency coordination and streamlining policy at national and subnational level. Chrissy brought that up a lot. There's a need to make sure that at national level, provincial and district level, even down to local level, policies and programs that will prioritize about mainstreaming of forest foods, legal framework, provide clear guidance and support, including incentives, interagency coordination, data collection, keep the forest, focus on wild plants in situ, focus on cultural and less on domestication, except in cases justified commercial. Integrated policies between forestry, agriculture, and the sector. Yes, data collection again, the various regions, because the priorities are different. Mapping of forest foods. We need to focus also on what is being done and what the local women. It's an interesting one, explore big data use, but I think we need to make sure that we have the right goals and techniques to be able to figure out how best to use big data. Gather information on harvesting and storage system, storage line various forest foods. That will be important for nutrition used by subsistence and local people, because one of the challenges, of course, is they can store fresh foods ready. So obviously, when it's processed, it's much easier for them. So that's also a dichotomy that we will do. I think that's it for priority action. What is data collection? I think it's in group one. There is actually, it looks like very little coherent data collection for forest foods, even wild plants, I would say. Different departments and institutions may be involved, and the collection does not seem comprehensive and so specific, probably to the needs that has been identified or to the volumes and so on that is seen. So that is why there's more collection. I think I need to go through it, but there are different departments that are doing this. Like in the Philippines, the Forest Management Bureau may be doing it, the Forest Service may be doing it, and Korea, that is leading is collecting data about agriculture, maybe more. And it's also important to note, although this is also part of the challenge, data collection is an expensive activity. So we need to encourage governments to provide funds for the regular conduct of data collection. There is no regularity in the data collection.
Oh, sorry, Chen, I thought you were done with the slide.
Yeah, that's
Want me to
fine.
go back?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
No, that's fine. Future scenario. Okay. We got two more. Now, inclusion of forest foods as an explicit objective of forest management, which is true that there's a lack of emphasis on forest foods, timber and value adding production. As more people become environmentally conscious, more and more people love it. Fingers crossed, there's a whole major source of diet enhancing livelihood of forest value. In this one, we have to also just balance it out. Subsistence, livelihoods, less needs, commercialization, more income. So how to balance it all out. Forest foods will gain the high values as healthy food in them. That would be nice. Research might be needed to justify that. Forests are managed to include design zones for food and non-timber forest products production. That can fit in well, I think, also in the arrangement of area system. Clear pathways and sustained support, financial and technical forest products. So can you scroll back up with the secure tenure and territories for indigenous peoples, local communities, so they can save and manage and grow forest. Policy coordination between forestry, agriculture, and nutrition is complete. Policy with forest food system policy. Can you scroll down, please? More major sources of diet and enhancing livelihood of forest dependent. Clear pathways and sustained support financial technical forest foods in forest management. That will be helpful. More support to R&D, that will support sustainable utilization and differentiate activities for commercialization of forest foods for income generation versus livelihood. Indigenous and local communities nurturing and sustainability. Countries have harmonized their policies that are sustaining forest foods and very low to lack of support in developing database and forest food consumption. That's the scenario, but it's also only that challenges and issues that needs to be focused. That's it. All right, thank you very much. Thank you, group. I hope I covered everything, but please do chime in. There's anything that's missing. Thank you, Anderson.
Julia, would you like to add anything to the points?
No, I think Chen covered everything. I mean, when it comes to challenges, maybe and priority actions, data just definitely surfaced as a key concern. And I think everyone looked to the Korea Forestry Promotion Institute just for a tremendous job they do in collecting data. So I think we have a lot to learn. But yeah, I think Chen covered everything else. Thank you.
Thank you so much, presenters and moderators. It was a great way to actually wrap up the technical session, thinking about the future scenarios of forest food's contribution to forest food systems. So if we do not have any further comments from our participants, then I would like to wrap up the breakout session and thank you all for your contribution. As the last part of the session, I would like to invite Sven for his very quick concluding remarks of the session.
Indeed. Thanks a lot, Nara, and thanks for all the great contributions. Very quickly, on the working groups, I think when it comes to the vision, I noted basically three main aspects. One is contribution to diets. So really the subsistence aspects are very important. Second, inclusive value chains. So all the issue of socioeconomic benefits. And third, the policy level, how to create an enabling environment. And within the three, I think we have a bunch of action points which we noted, referring to the different sessions. The data already, Julia, you mentioned very little. I mean, we see that it's a big challenge, but we have some very good examples, Korea, India, Philippines. So let's maybe look how, how they do it and how we can replicate and adjust what they are doing. And for the challenges, obviously, we heard a lot about commercialization and subsistence uses, and the need of having better policies, and that was the coordination aspects between national and local, but also across the different ministries. What I remembered from the first presentation is that carrots might be more relevant than sticks. So, what are the encouragement and politics? Taking into account the growing international policies from SDGs to CBD and so on. I think that was very clear. Again, we had the good examples from the countries, in particular from Korea, and also what I liked from, I think it was from Vietnam, really focusing on the multifunctional use of forests. So how can we, increase this multifunctionality of forests to cover all the different, basically, products and services? I think that will be something that will be very interesting. And also India, of course, with the different, price schemes was something we can learn about. So a lot to learn. And I'm sure that we will come back to this in our last session on the topic, which I think will start more or less in 1 hour at 1:30 Korea time. Nara, back to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Then with this, I'd like to wrap up this session. And thanks so much for your participation, and sorry for not being able to stick to the original plan, but it really shows the participants' excitement and commitment. So as Sven mentioned, so please join us for the final session, which begins at 1:30 Korean time, which is in about an hour, for a summary of the different technical sessions and identify the priority areas of work, and to jointly discuss next steps on the partnership opportunities after the workshop. Then see you in a short while.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Excellent. I see that the room is getting full again. So I hope you had a good lunch break. Happy to see you from basically all around the world. I see my colleagues, I see Nara, and I just saw Durai from Inba. He put the camera on, so feel free to do so, as we would like to have a very engaging session now, which is actually the final session of the workshop now we had for 3 days on the forest food systems in the Asia-Pacific region and their contribution to food security and nutrition. And I would like to remind us also on the subtitle, Defining Priorities for Sustainable Use in the Asia-Pacific region. And that is what we are aiming now, seeing a bit during the wealth of the discussion we had over the 3 days, can we identify some of the priority action we need to follow up within our individual institutions, but also collectively as partners. With this, as I said, we had now 2 days discussions of that workshop, which we are organizing together with the Korea Forest Service. So welcome to all the colleagues who are, with us from KFS, and of course also from the other countries. What we are thinking for this session now is that we go through the different thematic sessions. We will give a high-level summary of the discussions, and this is obviously a preliminary summary, as we are just off actually from the last session, which ended 1 hour ago. But we would like to give you an opportunity to comment on this in case we forgot anything. That is basically the objective of this session, and obviously after that session and at the end of the meeting, we will provide you with a written summary, where of course you will also have the opportunity to provide comments. In that session, we will highlight now the different thematic topics like food security and nutrition, conservation and management, the value chains, enabling environment, but we will also touch upon the elements of a vision, a collective vision for the region, and we will go back to the terminology. So that will be basically the brackets. And then at the end of that session, we will have a little reflection on partnership opportunities for future engagement. And we will close with some, interventions from interested, participants, from you. And I will ask you at that point in time to raise your hand. I just want to acknowledge also the presence here of Mr. Dambis Kaib from the PNG Forest Authority. It's a privilege to have you with us. So with this, I would like to invite Diego to share the screen, and I will give the floor first to Julia, who will give basically the first summary on the introduction and the terminology. And once this is done, I will open the floor for comments from your side, and then let's see how we can proceed. Over to Julia.
Thank you, Sven. So we've had very rich discussions over the past 3 days, divided in 4 technical working groups. So the first was on food security and nutrition. Then we covered conservation and management, value chains, and just about an hour ago, we went over enabling environment. Next slide, please. So we've had representation from all over Asia Pacific, many countries involved, both in providing inputs in the questionnaire and also throughout the breakout groups, with a total of about 72 participants distributed throughout the working groups. Now, our first question in the first working group on food security and nutrition was, how would you describe forest food systems? And we had a lot of interesting comments here, both positive and negative. The word diversity and diverse came up quite a bit, nutritious, and also some opportunities, nutrient dense, biodiversity, and also some of the negatives. So threatened, undervalued, fragile, unknown. So a vast variety of perceptions on forest food systems. So terms and data came up throughout all the different discussions. We did some polling. This was before the working group. So from the surveys about the main terms used by your institution. So by and large, NTFPs, so non-timber forest products, was the main term used that came out, but also several others. Wild foods came out, non-wood forest products, surprisingly a bit less. NUS, so neglected and underutilized species, forest foods. And this is of particular interest to us because it's really essential to data collection if we don't harmonize these terms. So we also did a quick poll during our previous session. And again, NTFPs, non-timber forest products, the main term used, and wild foods also surfacing. It's great that there's this variety. Any statistician will tell you it's extremely difficult to collect data if these terms aren't harmonized. And we've actually been working for a couple of years now. But we've actually been working for a couple of decades on terminology, but particularly in the past couple of years, really trying to fine tune that terminology. And we've made improvements, but it's really important to understand what different countries are using and to try to harmonize those terms and definitions. So this has been extremely useful, and we'll have a lot of follow-up with you following this workshop as well. Next, please.
Thank you.
Over to you.
Yes, so just before we move ahead, I just wanted to check if there are any comments also from your side to the assessment just presented by Julia. Again, having these terms like non-wood and non-timber forest products, they are very relevant. And then we talk here also about forest foods. And as it was mentioned in one of the chats already, that this is then a subsection of the non-wood forest product. So I think from our end, we do check, what is our target group for the communication. Julia mentioned the statisticians. That's a world for itself. And then when we talk to the, to the greater public and when we do outreach, we may also need to adjust and use other terms. So that is at least a strategy we have from FAO side. So I just would like to check if anybody would like to comment on that topic of terminology before we move ahead with let's say the next subsection and moving on with the food security and nutrition discussion. I don't see any hands. So in that regard, okay, here there's one comment quickly, one insight from other regions. Actually, we had the same discussions 10 days ago for Latin America, and it was a bit similar. There also we had the term non-wood forest products. Obviously, we have there the issue of languages, and I think since there is less a distinction between non-wood and non-timber forest products, that's a bit difficult to distinguish. But that term was by far basically the standard term, which is recognized from a technical point of view. And so that was the guidance we got from Latin America. I will monitor what's going on in the chat and we may come back to this, but I will now give the floor to Diego to move ahead with a summary of the discussion on food security and nutrition. Diego, please.
Thanks, Sven. So on Monday, we started with the first technical session that was food security and nutrition. And here, well, we had a lot of participation and, well, thank you all for this. And then we identified some key challenges. Mainly, we tried to group it yesterday and today into these ones. The first one main challenge is knowledge gap. So there's a knowledge gap on conservation status of existing species. Also, there was a broad discussion on taxonomical knowledge, distribution, status, and use, but also on the nutritional attributes, the food composition, and the food safety of the forest foods. There's also a challenge on the perception of the limited role of non-wood forest products, or in this case, non-timber forest products, in enhancing food security and nutrition, and some inadequate messaging. There's also a lack of availability, mainly supply. The formal markets, or they're mainly informal markets, and in urban settings. There's also a lack of information on sustainably increasing production. Also, as it is, there's a lack of availability, there's a lack of access to, mainly in supermarkets, also, well, in formal markets. Also, as challenges were highlighted on the policy and regulatory environment, examples like inadequate cross-sectoral partnerships, and also lack of quality control, food safety standards, and quality assurance. And finally, there was a key challenge linked to societal trends and dietary transition, mainly diminishing consumption of traditional foods. Of course, this also came with a lot of interesting actions and priority actions to address these challenges, and mainly we group them in data and knowledge. Data, knowledge, and information of nutritional attributes, so mainly food composition, health benefits, food safety, bioavailability, and supply. So specific actions are like improve data collection efforts, showcase and disseminate what works, success stories, also very specific as food-based dietary guidelines to include wild foods, and education, awareness on nutritional and health attributes of forest foods. Another group is to improve availability and access, of course, linked to the challenge we already discussed. So enhance supply of native foods in domestic markets, support short value chains, and also market development and promotion by trying to enhance traceability or to facilitate behavioral change, to mention some of them. Also, as a priority action, it's foresee that community engagement, mainly to share values frameworks that support to indigenous peoples, and state support initiated for the use, knowledge, and protection and benefit flow. And also, finally, there's actions that should be linked to policy and regulation, like radical cross-sectoral collaboration, mentioned also in Latin America as a priority action. And finally, design or improve policies integrating forest foods based on nutrition data. Of course, we are here only highlighting some of them, but yeah, we have a really big list of actions that we need to work on. And as Ben already mentioned, these are just preliminary results. And finally, to finish with this section, we also have best practices, or in this case, success stories. And well, here we can mention some of the work that was done by FAO, in food composition table, but also the regional centers all over the world, and the effort on biodiversity food composition table. Also, the assessing biodiversity intake in dietary surveys. Well, there's a specific mention on the Pacific Island Food Revolution, the food festivals in Philippines, in New Zealand, and Republic of Korea. Also integrating forest foods into school feeding, geographic indication, Laos Edible Insect Project, Galipnot in PNG, forest food restaurants in Indonesia and Philippines. And another best practice to establish linkages with the Department of Agriculture and Fisheries. This already mentioned about increasing coordination and enhancing the positive linkages and complementarities between agriculture and forestry. So this is a very broad or a summary, really, of what we received. So I'm back to you, Sven, as main moderator.
Thank you very much, Diego, and back to you. Participants, in case you missed anything, or we missed anything, when you go back one slide, Diego, I think there was the key actions, the slide before.
Yes.
And just to see if, so again, in case anything, you realize which is seriously missing, please flag it or raise your hand. Very good. We will monitor the chat. Diego, you can move ahead. And you see already that in the discussions we had, that is, of course, always linking even the different topics. So Diego already mentioned some issues related to the production side when talking about food security. So you see that, and we always stress that these issues are obviously very strongly interlinked. However, looking to the supply production side, so conservation and management, we identified also a wealth of risks, but also opportunities. Over to you, Julia, for a brief summary.
Thank you, Sven. I'm just noting in the chat, Warren, you mentioned nutrient bioavailability. It's noted, I think it was somewhere that was a slide packed with information. I think we put it in there. If not, again, noted and very important and point that we'll consider. Thank you, Warren. Moving on to conservation and management. Some of the key challenges and risks mentioned, of course, related to availability due to different factors, deforestation, climate change, so also uncertainty about future availability, invasive species and pests, habitat destruction, land use changes, over-harvesting, logging, illegality, and the last point, interesting point, competition with agricultural products. So certainly an issue of availability and supply there. again, knowledge and information. So loss of traditional knowledge and loss of understanding, or lack of understanding rather, of traditional management practices, and also poor understanding. So that scientific knowledge also, that botanical knowledge on forest foods is sometimes missing. Access and use rights, so inadequate, insecure, and complex access and use rights, which differentiate across countries as well. Unfair sharing of benefits and land tenure issues, all crucial when it comes to managing these resources. Also capacities, very specific to propagation and domestication, for example, where appropriate. Inadequate management was brought up. Governance issues again, so lack of intersectoral coordination and failure to link different agendas, which essentially is what we're trying to do here, but between climate resilience, nutrition, and improved livelihoods. So adding those nutrition elements and livelihood elements to the conservation management agenda. Lack of comprehensive regulatory frameworks and policies, again, balancing conservation on the one side, and use and domestication as well. Lack of mechanisms for power relations, so conflict management was also mentioned. And lack of resources targeting conservation and valuation of forest food. So that issue of value came up also. Some of these issues came up obviously across the different working groups because they're very much linked. Next, please. And then some of the priority actions. So again, key was enhancing supply. And there were different schools of thought here about the extent to which domestication is appropriate, particularly for vulnerable species. But it's certainly an option that was mentioned. Also restoration with forest food species, so nutrition sensitive restoration. Working on those management practices. Community management was mentioned as absolutely key as we move forward, building on local knowledge and culture and practices, and those indigenous management practices. So merging that plant science with traditional knowledge and practice, developing livelihood opportunities to incentivize stewardship, legal frameworks to regulate use, sustainable harvesting guidelines was mentioned quite a bit, and identifying institutions to oversee management. Knowledge, again, key across all the technical sessions with regards to conservation and management, specifically on inventorying. And again, that issue of value. So different types of value, biodiversity, social and economic values, prioritizing species suitable for domestication, and identifying and promoting alternatives where appropriate. And these, a specific mention was made to alternative sources of protein. And then supporting sustainable use. There was this idea of use it or lose it. So identifying high potential regional forest food value chains, supporting local food consumption in traditional markets, research and development, so also linked to the value chain aspects, ensuring benefit sharing arrangements, and also involving the private sector. And then we saw some great examples from different countries. That image there is the Papua New Guinea multi-purpose forest management, which is quite rare. So it was a good example of also inventorying for beyond timber. FAO's voluntary guidelines on wild plant genetic resources and wild food plants. That image on the bottom is of the Korea Forest Service, which I think it really came out of their fantastic data on all fronts, especially production data, and a lot to learn there on their methodologies as well. And then several other guidelines, certification and standards mentioned. And I'll stop there.
Thanks a lot, Julia. Also, you can go just one, or Diego, one slide backwards. Seeing if there are any comments. There is a comment also to make reference to new production systems. So basically, I think, find this balance between the traditional management system, the new systems, maybe linking it also with innovation. Innovation will be something, as I mentioned in the first session, FAO will continue to work on a lot in the coming years. And I think the forest food sector is, of course, a sector full of innovation, which we can identify and then help upscaling. So that message is well noted. I see, yeah, Mr. Kaib, Dambis, please, you raise your hand.
Yes, hello to all of you again. I think even though I was not part of the workshop since Monday, but the summary of what has been presented over the last few days is of very high relevance to situations in Papua New Guinea, and we really appreciate the work of the organizers in capturing what is happening in terms of forest food and non-timber forest products in different parts of the country, which is good. One of the things that I would like to also, whether the previous discussions have actually identified something, but like in the context of Papua New Guinea, majority of our people live in the rural areas, and they live in rural communities and in the forest and all that. Majority meaning about 80% of our population. So that's a big population that rely on the forest for their livelihood and all that. Even though we are sort of increasingly moving into the cash economy, but forest food, non-timber forest products do play a significant role in terms of food supply, medicinal supply to our rural communities. So those are some of the things happening in Papua New Guinea. One of the things that is really sort of untapped is the medicinal plants. Now, the rural communities, they use their own knowledge to cure various diseases, and then without any advice from doctors, they sort of bring those forest materials made into juice for curing various types of sickness. So what I'm trying to say is that there's a lot of potential that are there in the rural communities which are untapped. And from a PNG's point of view, is that is an area that has not been untapped, that has not been tapped into. There's a lot of potential there, and that requires exploring the potentiality of non-timber forest products and food supply in Papua New Guinea. I'm sure it would be same for other tropical countries as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much for these insights, and also the link food systems, medicines, and then the importance for the rural populations. I see Chen.
Yes, thank you. A good presentation. One thing that I like to bring up, I think it also relates to the challenges and risks, but also priority action thing. That we are working with indigenous peoples, local communities. I think one of the assumptions we make is that they have the skill sets and the language capability and so on to absorb a lot of all these new ideas. And I think that's a fallacy. But we need to start from their perspective of how they view things and their language and literacy skills as well, including even setting up small businesses and so on. Those are things that needs a lot of training, capacity building, coaching, mentoring, and various other issues that wraps around that, trying to lift them out of poverty and make sure that they can contribute and they get a livelihood that will support them in the future. I think that is probably something that needs to be eased out a lot more, I think, both in the risks and challenges, but also in the priority, how to make sure we can do that. To all these things we are doing. It's benefiting them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think what you are saying is echoed or vice versa from the chat, which also highlights the importance of local management. And I think that's what you said. You know, we have on the one side the local management, the local knowledge. We also talked about the markets. So, you know, and linking then these different levels. I think that will be very, very important. So this issue of community capacities is noted. The local management is noted. I think the digital innovation, digital technology is something which also was flagged during various sessions. And there might be still challenges in upscaling, but definitely we have a lot of innovation going on, which we can basically also provide to local communities and in order to strengthen certain, for example, certain value chains. There is a comment on domestication versus commercialization. Many plants have been species have been domesticated, but are not commercialized as the consumption is very localized. So here, I think, again, this dynamic between the two was discussed in many of the sessions, and will be good to flag this. I think it is also somewhere mentioned, but maybe we will highlight it a bit more. Conservation can often imply not being commercialized to preserve endangered resources. So again, this issue between conservation, use or lose. So I think these issues we know from PNG, and we also made, for example, reference to CITES as one, I think, of the important points. And basically frameworks which we are working at. I think that's it from the chat. I don't know, Julia, if you have any comments on the comments made.
Yeah, I just wrote them in the chat directly.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, I see it now. Okay, very good. Thanks for this. And that means, Diego, you can move ahead, but stop. We said that before we move ahead, just a little break because we realized that we did not yet do a group photo. And so I would invite you, if you kindly would, if you're in the possibility to do so and you would like to do so, maybe just to open your video so we can take at least a screenshot. So to recognize you and the very good discussions we have. That looks very nice. Thanks, thanks so much. And Clara, you will take the photo? So you warn us.
Yes. So 3, 2, and 1.
Again,
Okay.
Simona was late. Take another picture.
Okay. So 3, 2, and 1.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Clara. And we go
No
back
problem.
to the business. Since Julia spoke, now it's up to Diego to move ahead with the next topic. And that's actually on the value chain. So I think, Diego, you will share again your screen and we move ahead with the key challenges. Over to you, Diego.
Thanks, Sven. So now we go to the technical session, value chains. And well, several challenges were raised here. The first one was linked to supply and sustainability of the resource. Here, aspects such as overexploitation, insufficient supply, cultivation challenges, seasonality, and balancing sustainability with scaling up production and illegal sale were mentioned. Also, it was raised the challenge on information and data, like lack of market information, blurring lines between forestry and agriculture, mainly linked to statistics and incentives. Food safety information is lacking, poor consumer market confidence in product quality and value chains, lack of feasibility studies on these value chains, and lack of knowledge on how to scale up. Another group of challenges are linked to highly informal. So this is the name of the challenge, or the group of the challenges. And yeah, we found here that challenges such as poor infrastructure, also that usually forest foods value chains are highly decentralized and difficult to access for lucrative markets. They have like a high processing and marketing costs. There's also a lack of connectivity between producers, distributors, and markets, and no formal accounting records, limited commercial history, and so on. Also, there's poor community engagement. So there's a big failure to consult indigenous communities, low priority sector. For example, nut crops are not given subsidies. For example, like in agriculture, for carbon or afforestation. And also there's a challenge on competition with more readily available non-forest based foods. As key actions under this technical session, or priority actions were mentioned on statistics. So to generate information, data, and awareness. So there's a need for clear definitions. That was already discussed. Market information system, inform also consumers with evidence on the benefits of forest foods and use. Also more and best market strategies to transmit forest values. An example, I think that also this could be a good example, is the forest food festivals, and also work with schools to bring forest foods to youth. Research and development on bioactive compounds and nutritional attributes of forest foods, and nutritional labeling. Another group is the standards and protocols to ensure sustainable harvest and production and quality. This means food safety, handling, and hygiene assessments and guidance. And there's also another group on building capacities and networks. So this is more linked to training in marketing skills, technical support in cultivating, propagating, and sustainably harvesting forest foods. Also to empower entrepreneurs with training and information, cooperative networks of non-timber forest products organizations to be supported on the provision of outlets for production, and in general, market studies. The last two are enabling environment and finance. So for enabling environment, priority actions were mentioned on securing tenure, access, and use rights, the collaboration between sectors, sharing of value chain risks by all actors. And on finance, there's examples on priority actions such as blended finance, grants, and soft loans, long-term donor support to reduce and mitigate commercialization risks, and linking sustainable, scalable models to business finance support. As best practices, I think that this is also what we learned from the flash presentations, and also some other contributions from on the working groups are, for example, the wild ginseng certificate system of the Republic of Korea, the UMF rating Manuka honey, also the Forest Harvest Collective mark, and the third wild standards, a couple of standards or certification processes. Also astringent persimmon in South Korea, the UN Red Asian Social Forestry, the Gallup Knot Project, and Last Forest India. So these were some best practices, success stories that, of course, they were shared, and okay, we will also make available in the report and all the information that we will prepare for you after the workshop. So this ends this summary of the value chain technical session. And yes, Ben, back to you for opening the floor too.
Thank you very much. The floor is, of course, open and was already open while you talked, Diego. So we got already comments on it. And thanks also to Julia for responding. And indeed, I think having that supply challenge, thanks for clarifying this, this will be added. It was less discussed during the session, but very often in other sessions we had this, clear link, and that this is absolutely important. And also the proposal to look into different pathways related to innovation and maybe target different dimensions of innovation is something with which is very interesting and which we will look at and also refer to. So thanks for these comments. And I see also Mr. Kaib, please.
Thank you, Sven. Also again, we'd like to appreciate all the value chain and the challenges presentation this workshop, which really captures the things that are happening in Papua New Guinea, as I have actually indicated in the chat box, and of course I think a few others have actually put that on the part of Papua New Guinea. I think the gallop nut production is appears to be successful with the support of HER over many years. It started off very slowly and now into food production, gallop actual production and selling and marketing. So which is appears to have been successful, and we appreciate that to HCR. But I think, like I mentioned earlier on, there's a lot of other potentialities and need to be explored. The problem in Papua New Guinea is that we do not have a separate policy or legislation on non-timber forest product. Even though there's some provision in the main forest policy and the forestry law, it's among the main act, the main law and the policies emphasized on log production, timber production, and all that. So I think there needs to be significant attention given to non-timber forest product in our country, and I think that's something that we need to consider at the national level. But I thank you, the team, for capturing everything that I think is happening in Papua New Guinea. Thank you so much.
No, thanks to you, and thanks for reminding us. We had a discussion exactly on the gallop production yesterday, and I think it was referenced as a good practice. So in that regard, I think it's good to get this confirmation, so that we can see how this could be replicated and what are the lessons learned actually. And we heard a lot about the lessons learned. I think capacity building was mentioned, and I think the issue of enforcement, that's something which probably, as you said, Jan, was not mentioned as such, but I think we can add it actually when we talk about the enabling environment, so that we have that reference there. So as this relates very much to the enabling environment, I think I will just give the floor immediately to Julia to summarize the discussion we had earlier today on the topic. Julia, over to you.
Thank you, Sven. So again, what we saw in this last session, which took place a couple of hours ago now, is just data kept coming up again. Data, information, terminology, the need for more evidence to really support those policies. So that surfaced, and we also, I have to mention a great presentation from the Republic of Korea. They don't have a problem with data. They produce fantastic statistics, so I think we have a lot to learn from them, and they publish all this information as well. So do have a look, and we'll circulate it in the proceedings afterwards as well. So data, and certainly a key challenge. Access and use rights tenure that surfaced again. So undefined ownership, inadequate involvement of local communities and indigenous peoples, Again, that lack of regulatory environment, intersectoral policies, so policies that sometimes don't necessarily speak to each other between the different sectors, forest, agriculture, crop, etc. Health, low interest at the policy level, so not a lot of political will. Lack of incentives. Incentives came up a lot, also in some of the other sessions. Again, food safety regulations and specific policies on forest foods. Lack of interest to restore and value forest systems. So again, this issue of value resurfaced. And this was, I think, mentioned just now in the chat, but a concern that too much emphasis on commercialization and subsistence use is being ignored. So definitely an area that warrants more research. Next, please. So it leads us to some of those priority actions. So it is clear that we have a mandate now to really, I mean, we do work on statistics, but to improve this. So establishing global methodologies, sharing methods that work, redefining these definitions. There's a big gap, particularly when it comes to consumption data. So working also on production and trade statistics, but that area of consumption really needs more work. So this can only happen with interagency collaboration. The need to map forest foods and also different uses and be gender specific. Information on different harvesting methods and storage systems. And then someone put in exploring big data use. So I think that's the big 10-year sort of plan there. Legislative framework. So improving these clearer guidance needed on standards, particularly with regards to food safety, but quality control in general, integrated and cross-sectoral policies. So specific policies on the one hand for forest foods, but at the same time, there was a need to prioritize, again, that cross-sectoral collaboration. And also integrating mitigation potential was mentioned as a priority action. And finally, engaging communities, consulting them to get their inputs and buy-in, fostering inclusive and participatory processes, and again, addressing tenure and access rights, use and benefit sharing. So these were the key issues. This happened about, again, a couple of hours ago, so we might have missed something in the summary here, but feel free to chime in here. And I think we're going to pause on this. No, okay, best practices. Again, I can't say it enough, but the Korean Forestry Promotion Institute really has a lot of information. So that was definitely a best practice there. Also some good practices mentioned and good statistics coming out of Vietnam, particularly with regards to medicinal plants. And then we had a fantastic presentation from India this morning on an agricultural policy. So this minimum price support scheme, which if you missed it, we'll share it as well. So these are just some of the key practices and success stories that came up.
Thanks a lot, Julia. And in the chat, I think there were two comments. One is really the empowerment issue, which I mean we discussed very much in particular yesterday. I remember it in each session we talked about empowerment. And the second one is, of course, if you look into the legal framework, how does the legal framework address all the different issues when it comes to subsistence, to the use at the national level, at the international level? Is it an enabler? Is it a constraint? I think that's something where also we need to see what needs to be done, partly also at the product level in order to provide the right incentives, or maybe if necessary the sticks, in order to support the development of certain, be it value chains or be it the subsistent uses of certain NTFPs. So these points are definitely recognized, and also the link obviously to sustainable development and even in the session this morning, there was a clear reference to all the international conventions and agreements which provide the framework actually in which we operate. We obviously as FAO, but also the other countries operate. So that is very much acknowledged. The discussion continues, and I think Julia, you can also continue, because all the elements we heard now, actually they feed into something what we would call like a bit a broader and larger narrative or a strategy. And you put some of the elements together, taking into account the survey first of all and the discussions here. So over to you, Julia, for the next step. And please, continue to put your comments in the chat or raise your hand. Julia, please.
Thank you, Sven. I just wanted to, I noted, again, Chen's making some great comments in the chat. He mentioned that regulatory frameworks can be constraining, especially when the fit is wrong. Fully agree. I think we do mention quite a bit the need for regulation, but I think it's really so context specific. In fact, sometimes formalization regulation can have the opposite effect. And we had Sarah Laird this morning from People and Plants, who's written extensively about this. And I quote her when she says, some products need a lighter hand, meaning it really is context specific, and it's hard to generalize because the sector is, there's so many different products, so many different end uses, so it's really hard to generalize, but we're trying to just capture obviously some of the key threads, and some of this won't apply to all contexts and all products. So thank you, Chen, for that comment. Moving on for the vision. So we briefly shared this last, it was 3 days ago, this vision for the future. You all had fantastic ideas, ranging from forest restoration to scaling up social forestry, and businesses. Education was mentioned, marketing, research and development, the need for more scientific knowledge. We'll add that traditional knowledge aspect as well, and the need to merge the two, effective implementation of that knowledge, and collaboration across sectors. I'm not going to read them again, but these are just some of the ones that really stood out that I felt, particularly the second, really encompass a lot of what we've been talking about over the past couple of days. Diego, can you share the next slide? So this comes from the discussions from this morning, so quite fresh. I just really took sound bites from what different participants had to say. So a lot of discussion about around the value. So the perception that forest foods will gain high values as healthy foods in markets. Forest food value chains are formalized and strengthened, taking into account all stakeholders, including local indigenous peoples. We really asked participants, where do you see yourself, or where do you see this topic, down the line 10 years from now? I think Alanya mentioned this yesterday. I'm curious to have you elaborate. So we've been doing a lot of identifying priority actions and challenges, but really, where do we see ourselves? Where do we see all this going? And I think it's important to reflect on that. Then certainly the nutrition elements were highlighted. Forest foods are major sources of diets, enhancing the livelihood of forest-dependent communities. So that's an important vision. We had someone being very specific here. Forest foods are 50% or above in diets of forest communities and 30% for others. That idea of, again, cross-sectoral coordination was a key vision. So inclusion of forest foods is an explicit objective of forest management systems, but not only, also country development and food security strategies, policy coordination, and also a vision specific to statistics. So there's a lot of people really keen on making sure this evidence base grows, and again, to support those policies. And inclusion was a key theme that came up time and again. So these are just some sound bites, but I think this is really your opportunity, if your vision wasn't captured, to really voice it now.
Indeed. So anything to add, please feel free to do so. I think that captured probably most, and I mean, a lot of these elements, Julia, what are there, are of course also linked then more specifically in the other more technical topics. So we try probably when it comes to the vision also to be a bit more, broader. On the other side, I think when moving ahead, this issue of having some kind of, well, even indicators, will be useful, and that of course will guide us also through the next steps, definitely from our side in FAO, and obviously also for many of you when it comes to the implementation of various projects and programs. So I'm just checking if there's any, looking parallel at the screen, at the chat, but I see a thank you there. So I'm happy to see a thank you. So that means, we are responding, and there's a very good discussion among you, which is very important. And so I think, Diego, when you put on the next slide, we are moving, and I mean, obviously the floor is open for continuous inputs. Actually, we are looking also into the future, and we all know that we noted that the topic is very complex, that it links to many barriers, and that a lot needs to be done. And in that regard, having effective partnerships will be a key to move ahead. Partnership at the global level, partnership at the regional level, and of course also partnerships at the national level. So before moving ahead and having a discussion on these partnership opportunities, and we are very delighted to have key partners actually around the table. We would like to do a little brainstorming session, and that will be the last time that Diego will share a Menti link with you. Hopefully the next time there will be another workshop in a physical one where we have a flip chart and can really sit together and do some brainstorming, which is of course more effective than doing it here on Zoom. But still, we would like to do a little exercise just on brainstorming on where do you see partnership opportunities, and who will be partners you find relevant, of course including also your institutions, to move ahead, because again we cannot move ahead alone. So when you go and click on the Menti in the chat, it will bring you to the Mentimeter, where you can respond to the question, what are from your side relevant initiatives and partners in the Asia Pacific, partners, development partners, donors, that can provide upscaling opportunities to promote sustainable forest food systems. So any ideas you have, of course, be as specific as possible. Just go on the Menti and give us at least 3 opportunities, 3 ideas from your side, and we will see what kind of word cloud will be developed on the screen. So we will give you like 2 minutes, and please feel free to share any view on possible partners and initiatives. Again, don't be shy also to refer to your initiatives, of course. We do have 30 participants, so let's aim for 50 inputs, everybody too. Thanks for reminding us on the long term. I think that was a huge discussion, discussion we had yesterday, that short-term interventions will have limited impact. Let's give it one more minute. I see IAR in the center for the time being. Yeah, and we also see that, of course, there is the different sectors involved. So be it more on the forestry side, be it on the nutrition side. And what definitely one of our aims is to cross that silos and to really collaborate. And in that regard, being from the forest division here, it's good to have Warren with us, and that we really benefit also from the colleagues working on the nutrition aspects. Excellent. I think this will we can leave it a bit in the background for the time being, Diego, and see if there are any changes. But I would like to open the floor and see if from your side you have any ideas, any intervention statements when it comes to emerging partnerships, how you see also your role in this. You know, to provide this support, obviously also to benefit. And I think we're all doing both at the same time. We benefit always from the collaboration. And obviously, I think a partnership can only be, you know, successful if there is a win-win situation. And we believe that that discussion has shown actually that we do move ahead together and sharing the benefit among us. So with this, I would love to open the floor for any comments, any guidance on the partnerships opportunities. And so I would maybe first, Mr. Dambis, you spoke already, and you highlighted the situation in PNG. Any advice, any guidance from your side on your engagement and your interest in collaboration and also in partnerships on these topics?
Yes, thank you, Sven. I think in terms of partnership with on this subject on food systems and non-timber forest forest food systems and non-timber forest product, yes, the ACR is the one that is currently we've been working on. But like I said, mentioned earlier on the gallop nut, we've been working on at the same time. Other non-timber forest products such as sandalwood, which we have been working on, projects have been ongoing. The good thing about ACR is that because it's a research organization, it continues on with the a project, and after the term of the project expires, it continues on until it achieves the result that it wants to achieve, which is a good thing for us, because many a times when projects are undertaken and it is always difficult to get it under as a recurrent project at the national level. So ACR continues to, but when it is undertaken, taken on board as a recurrent, the government fund and continue on with the program. So in terms of partnering, ACR is good. FAO, yes, for big projects like the National Forest Inventory that we worked on, that's also sort of touched base on non-timber forest product, but it's made emphasis on timber production and carbon and the biodiversity. But there's first potential of looking at non-timber forest product in our inventory. We have not actually completed inventory. Only 6 or 7 provinces have been inventoried. The other 14 provinces are yet to be inventoried. For FAO, yes, it's a lot of things be done here, but our regional office thing is in sub-regional office in Samoa, and sometimes it's a long way away from Papua New Guinea. So that's one of the things. But I think in terms of visibility in country is very, very important. Otherwise, we have the SPC that is based in Suva, which we do have some collaboration in terms of forest research and all that, but that needs to be strengthened. But for other partners like GF, they are slowly coming in. GF is agreed to fund part of our 2 of our provinces in terms of the National Forest Inventory work, which we appreciate. But partnership building, the main thing is capacity development, and all that is these are very, very important in our country. As you may know, the main core business of forestry in this country is on logging and timber production. But we are increasingly moving into non-timber forest products, and communities are now beginning to understand the importance of community forestry and understanding making value out of a non-timber forest product, and people come to appreciate those things. So there's a growing in community forestry work in Papua New Guinea. So I think at this stage that's all I can tell you. But I think in the broader context, we as a government and as a PNG Forest Authority is going through some transformational changes in trying to review our forestry law and policy on various aspects of forestry. So hopefully some of these things that we are discussing at this, which is very, very important, can be captured in our policy reformation process. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thanks for reminding us for all the opportunities we do have in the region from FAO side, and of course also with all the other agencies, like for example the GEF, which indeed without them we also, I mean, we need this type of partnerships from a technical but also from a financial side. I also see here, of course, Mr. Park from the Korea Forest Service. It's good to see you again, and obviously KFS is an important partner from our side, so we are very grateful for your support and for our collaboration. And you reminded us already in the opening on the World Forestry Congress, you know, and the declaration we all endorsed in Seoul. And actually, it's true that for us, this is one of the pathways to move ahead, to implement the recommendations. We had such a rich discussion in Seoul on many of these topics, including the one we are discussing these days on the forest foods. So yeah, we're delighted also to see your views on future partnership and opportunities. And again, thanks so much for hosting this event, and it's a privilege to work with you. Mr. Park, please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Walter. Good afternoon, good morning, distinguished participants and ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to express my heartfelt appreciation to all of you who attended this meaningful workshop over the past 3 days. The insight and ideas shared during this workshop has deeply moved me. I believe that our collective efforts to innovate and enhance forest food system have been tremendously stimulating for all participants. I'd like to extend my deepest gratitude to the keynote speakers who initiated productive discussions, and to the presenters who inspired us with the vivid examples and experience from various countries and regions. As highlighted in the opening sessions, the global and Asia-Pacific food security and nutrition situations necessitate immediate actions. The instability of food crisis caused by COVID-19 and international political issues have resulted in food security crisis in many countries, exacerbating problems such as nutritional imbalance, hunger, and poverty. I think that this workshop has provided us with a valuable opportunity to recognize the significance and potential of forest food and sustainable forest management in addressing these challenges. Through the presentations and discussions, we witnessed firsthand how diverse forest food contribute to nutrition and our economy. However, due to the challenges in data collections and limitations of the statistical systems, the true contribution of forest food is still not fully acknowledged and evaluated. Personally, I have learned that FAO is currently leading the development of a guidance note aimed at establishing standardized terminology and methodology. I would like to commend FAO and experts involved for this tireless effort and work, and I also anticipate the publication soon. Once again, I would like to emphasize the necessity of our forestry statistics and encourage future collaboration in this area. In addition, this workshop fostered extensive discussions on mainstreaming and promoting forest food. This is indeed a challenging task, I think. On one hand, we should preserve and uphold the knowledge and practices of indigenous and traditional communities. On the other hand, we should improve accessibility and develop markets for forest food. I think many presenters and participants already shared their valuable opinion on these issues. In this context, the various cases shared during the workshop from Papua New Guinea, Thailand, and other best practices have provided us with immense inspirations. Also, the Korea Forest Service will strive to support institutional initiatives and enhance international cooperation for forest food. Dear participants, our collaboration in the field of forest food may have been relatively limited in the past. However, the outcomes of the workshop are truly encouraging. Even though it is a short time of period, I'm certain that it served as a valuable chance to stimulate, empower, and motivate one another. Finally, I would like to express my gratitude once again to the FAO Forestry Division and the FAO PL of Korea for giving us this occasion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this guidance. Also to emphasize what are the important points which actually we should also emphasize in the future. And obviously we happily do this together with you and with all the other partners. So again, thanks a lot, and I hope we have the opportunity very soon to come back to Seoul and to South Korea and to further discuss and work on these topics. I'm also looking for other colleagues here who maybe have some contributions with regard to partnerships and our collaboration, and maybe also some reflections on the discussions on the workshops. I see the hand of Durai, who is, I guess, in Beijing. Of course, from INBA, one of our partners with whom we collaborate on the issue on bamboo and rattan. So Durai, please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Sivan. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, on behalf of the International Bamboo and Rattan Organization, I would like to thank the organizer and host, the Food and Agriculture Organization and the Korea Forest Service for successfully organizing this very important event. Further, our appreciation also goes to all the participants for their active participation and attendance to discuss on the forest food system and their contribution to food security and nutrition. I would like to highlight few points. Is 3 days of like in workshop have brought together different ideas, different interventions under the 4 themes. As we heard from like most of the speakers, the key challenges are like relates to knowledge gaps, access and availability of the food. It relates to the policy and like regulatory framework, environment capacities and incentives and so on. The actions which we all jointly brought together by aimed at improving the supply, the sustainable management, generating knowledge and data, capacity building, finance, creating enabling framework is highly relevant to all of us. So is 3 days have both accomplished the needs and priorities in the region, and it has become like very clear. We have like any concrete proposals like best practices and so on. In this context, I want to highlight few aspects about like bamboo. Many of us, we spoke about like bamboo also. In bamboo and rattan, which grows in about 35 million hectares, is an important forest food in Asia and in some parts of Africa as well. It has tremendous potential to contribute to fueling the sustainable development, investment, and economic development. In the recent years, with the research and technological advancement, in bamboo is an internationally traded commodity also, with about $300 million worth of products are being traded across the world. And about 20 million tons of the bamboo shoot is produced and consumed annually because of its high dietary fiber content, protein content, low cholesterol values, antioxidant properties, and high micronutrient availability. So in bamboo and rattan is an important, particularly we can call it like a forest food. INBAR with its like over 50 member states and its secretariat headquarters based in China is well placed to contribute to the South-South and Triangular Cooperation and contribute to this project. There is a huge scope for technology, knowledge, and investment transfers within Asia, Africa, and Latin America. So once again, I want to thank the contributors. I want to thank FAO, the Kenya Forest Service, and Sivan, Julia, and others for organizing this event. And I wanted to conclude by saying INBAR is like ready to work closely with all the partners to achieve this ambitious agenda. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Durai, for these words and also for the guidance and the ideas. And we are, of course, happy to continue our collaboration. And actually, we have some joint meetings also coming up very soon. I saw that Chen raised a hand first, and then I will pass the floor afterwards to Lania and Jessica. Chen, please.
Oh, thank you, Sven. Well, thank you to you and your team actually organizing very efficient workshop. And I know it's very early for you guys here in Rome, so we really appreciate the effort that you do. Thank you also for inviting Traffic. I definitely have learned a lot from you. I have to follow, not that it's a new area for me, but there are many things that I've been learning. The discussions and presentations reinforces the approaches that it uses, which is also captured in our strategy 2030. Because we work on the systems. Because we want to create the impact that we want to really replicate at scale. Of course, the challenges and issues of the use of our space. Here we're talking about plants and food. Because Traffic's new strategy provides a good foundation for our work. Because it covers what we've been talking about actually, the national, regional, and national. We have the reforms of regulatory frameworks and institutions, working with industry on ethical sustainable and legal purchasing, and changing consumer and industry actors for sustainable and legal demand. That is something that is less focused on by a lot of people. So I'm glad that that is being brought up. And we are also talking about changing or modifying behavior and demand as well, right? Either to up or to reduce if there is a lot of feedback for certain products and because we want it to be sustainable for this, right? The same is what we are talking about. So everything else was brought up during the workshop, but changing behavior, there was one bullet that was mentioned. There was the only bullet actually. We didn't really discuss it, but we should view that as complementary tool and action. It really depends on the objectives. Traffic has a lot of experience because we actually have a community of practice as well on behavior change and demand reduction. We have a platform basically, so you're welcome to join Traffic's website. And we also believe, and we are very grateful that FAO is taking the lead on it, because FAO is well placed to assist governments. Because what we talked about, developing coherent policy institutions, including multi-agency and ministerial coordination, that is a key. If we don't have the enabling conditions, the frameworks itself ready, then every one of us will be working at piecemeal, only at the issues and challenges that we're focusing on. Much more difficult to scale it up. That's what we really want. Right? So your convening powers and guidance, and the supporting information, data analysis, so on that you are building, working together with all those research organizations. That's really vital to ramp it up to the next level. So there's an urgent need to ensure dedicated government agencies, or agencies, not just agencies, as it may be right now, are assigned to collect data information. But we need the structure and we need a consistent methodology across the country. And we can see over the last 3 days that there isn't structure and consistency and methodology that helps it. FAO is definitely well placed with your membership. Work on power. And we look forward to working with FAO and all the other stakeholders, workshop and elsewhere, looking at NTFP, but also the subsector of forest food security. We in Traffic can bring our team, like our scientists, non-detriment findings, guidance, fair wild standards and certification, the Wild Check platform, which was developed for with FAO and IC, and looking at the food security challenges. I think it's also important one area that I think we shouldn't underemphasize. While it's an important, a very important segment of our that's used and can support the nutritional challenges faced by the local poor and marginal. It is a tough balance trying to increase the income, lifting people up from poverty, increase their standard of living, thereby giving them the options of resilience in nutrition, which may not be forest food itself, but giving them the flexibility, the approach towards improving their livelihood and income generation. That's also important to consider. And anyway, I really benefit a lot from this workshop, and Traffic stands ready to work with every one of you, FAO, on this. Thank you very much.
No, thank you very much. And we are very much enjoying the collaboration with Traffic. I think we complement each other, like, you know, with most of the entities here, we come with maybe with different mandates, but we have the same, you know, objectives and also the same vision. And I think that's very important. Indeed, we were very worried for the workshop because it was very early and is very early for us. But on the one side, the presentations were so exciting that there were no risk that we would fall asleep. And on the other side, I know that for the colleagues in New Zealand and also in Australia, you very often have night shifts now to attend meetings, I think, here in Europe. So in that regard, I think we all have sometimes a shared burden. With this, I would like to give first the floor to Lania and then to Jessica. Lania, please.
Oh, kia ora koutou. Greetings and hi to everybody that's online. I just also firstly like to say thank you to the FAO and to Korean Forest Service and to all the presenters over the last couple of days. This has been a particularly timely event in terms of some of the research that we're working on in New Zealand. And I just want to acknowledge that I think it's not just in New Zealand. And I think that for this particular cohort and this particular event, that we've got a massive opportunity within the Asia Pacific region to do something in this food forestry space. And on that, I just want to reiterate, I guess, a point that I was making in some of the discussions around what is the vision, and really it's about what is the value of food forests. And a value statement that I just want to share, it's very quick, around what we're trying to promote within New Zealand is the value of mankind's ability to sustainably forage in their forests, and how that supports and reconnects people to the natural food web. And I think within the Asia Pacific region, where we've got temperate forests and tropical forests, we've got indigenous people's subsistence, as well as productive industrialized forests. We've got an opportunity to look at how those food systems within those forests can actually be collectivized and working together in a way that's a low environmental footprint. And if our region, our Asia Pacific region, can work together, I think you know, it's got to be good for the world. And I think it's actually a really massive opportunity. And unfortunately, I missed yesterday's afternoon and this morning's session, actually meeting with people on Korean ginseng and another group on food forests as well. So I think there is an appetite at grassroots level within New Zealand and the people that I'm working with. And I just want to say that myself, Karen, we're involved in developing up a research program around food forests. So I just want to put that out there because I'm really interested in international collaborations. So, you know, please feel free to reach out and contact us, because we're looking to figure out how we can do something comprehensive and meaningful in terms of the research that we do versus the more niche type of research we have been doing in that space. And I just also want to highlight the opportunity, I guess, at the IUFRO conference. I know Karen is going to be presenting our work that we are doing on, you know, increasing the resilience through food forests at that IUFRO session later in Australia. So I just want to encourage any collaborations between us all, and am open to being contacted, and hopefully there's going to be some form of contact list if people are if that's going to be available. I'd appreciate that. So lastly, I just want to again thank all the presenters, FAO, the Korean Forest Service for running this. I really appreciate it. Ka kite.
Thank you very much. And it's nice to hear that there is appetite, and I think there is appetite all around, you know, the world on the topic. And I think that actually is also an engine to move ahead, because we see that the demand is there and the interest is there. Jessica, over to you.
Thank you for the time, and thanks everyone for, you know, these great 3 days. I thought, particularly given that ACIAR was in the middle of our word cloud, I might take a few moments to, I guess, explain what is ACIAR. So it's actually an acronym which stands for the Australian Centre for International Agriculture Research. So it's an Australian research centre that sits under our Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade. And we do have a focus on different research programs, including a forestry one. But wild and forest foods can fall under the mandate of various programs that we have, including social science, water, and potentially even horticulture. I wanted to flag that we have various country offices across the Asia Pacific region. So you're welcome, and we invite you to reach out to them if you have ideas about research and collaboration on this very topic, because it is a priority for us. And I think a lot of people working in the region may or may not actually even know about ACR, particularly perhaps those in Europe. Because, you know, from a global sense, ACR is a relatively small donor, just by the nature that Australia is also relatively a small country. However, the Asia Pacific is, and particularly the Pacific, is the priority of where our investments land. So for us, it's a very strategic region to be engaging on in this specific topic. And I think we have quite a niche in how we commission research, because it's very much co-developed. It's a very hands-on process from ACR, rather than a kind of more classical round of call for fundings that many other donors work. So essentially, we have researchers come to us with ideas. It goes through a various kind of almost an informal vetting process at the beginning, but the research program managers make a decision about whether they want to co-develop these ideas. And so essentially the ideas get developed together with ACR, together with the researchers that are pitching this idea, and it goes back and forth a little while. So it really is about having that joint buy-in, not just at the beginning, but throughout the implementation of the research as well. Traditionally, the model was very much focused around the kind of, you know, let's export Australian scientific expertise out. However, I'm very happy to say that this has started to shift, and we now have a very much a hybrid model of knowledge exchange that includes triangular development models. You know, for example, we have a project where communities in Samoa are exchanging traditional knowledge with the Torres Strait Islanders on wild harvesting, for example. And it also acknowledges the importance of traditional knowledge brokers in place of more traditional scientists. So, for example, I'm currently working on developing a project that is linking Indigenous Australian expertise around the commercialisation of wild foods in the Northern Territory with rural and forest-dependent communities in Timor-Leste that have aspirations to do the same with the local wild and forest foods that they have around them. We have smaller research projects and larger research projects, but we also have a huge focus on capacity development and partnerships, which are integral parts of ACR's strategy. So research around these areas, as well as requests specifically, particularly in terms of government capacity development. So that could be through Ministry of Agriculture or Ministry of Forestries that want capacity development in various areas, are welcome to also apply for funding and support. We have a huge number of scholarships and fellowships available as well to support that. So we really have a long-term focus as well in terms of building national capacity. And then just finally, I wanted to make a really small but maybe important call for more Asia and specifically Pacific-friendly times for regional meetings. It was just mentioned before that there is a shared burden, but I would like to respectfully challenge that and suggest that largely the burden almost completely falls on the Pacific to join 2 AM calls that are at the convenience of Europe and often UN-based donors. So we would really like to encourage FAO and others who have initiatives and really wish to engage in a meaningful way with Pacific Island countries and participants. And if you really want them to participate as much as possible, please try to find opportunities where you can organize these times during Pacific office hours. And I stress this, the importance of this to really be able to develop Pacific engagement and Pacific participation, because often internet is so terrible in Pacific Island countries. And often the only opportunities people have for quality internet is from the office. And so that this really should be considered in terms of facilitating engagement and partnership development as well. So a very humble request, but one that I think that if we saw more of would actually really facilitate the Pacific's participation in this space and engaging in global dialogues on this extremely important topic, because the Pacific has a wealth of knowledge and experience on wild and forest foods that we would love to share. And so it's a call for facilitating that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the call is well received. I also pass it on to my colleagues. I hope we anticipated that call a bit by aligning the hour more or less to the Asian timetable. I hope also to the Pacific one. But indeed, in particular, when we have global meetings, which include Asia and Latin America, then we have a big challenge, and we often end up at noon in Europe. But I will not comment on that one. But your call is very well received, and you are absolutely right. And thanks also for sharing all the information. I think that was also one of the ideas of this session, actually, to share this type of information and to see where the opportunities are. I also like to thank the chat link from Mr. Park, indicating the upcoming special issue on forests and food challenges and opportunities. We had, I think it was last year, a very exciting conference on the topic held in South Korea, where also we then attended. Also, so some difficult times for us, if I remember correctly, but it was very exciting. And that, again, is a type of collaboration which we appreciate. And of course, that includes all the colleagues in Australia and New Zealand and all around the world. So I see no more hands up. So that means we can, I think, slowly wrap up by again thanking you from our side. I, however, see the two colleagues from FAO side in the region. We have Warren from Bangkok and Nara Lee, who is from our office in Seoul. So I'm just invite if Warren and or Nara, if you have some quick words from your side, from the Asian Pacific. Before I conclude here the meeting from headquarters side in Rome. Maybe Warren, any quick words at the end?
Well, I would like to thank you, Stephen and Julia and your team from headquarters in coordinating and moderating, this meeting. This is a very successful meeting. And we also seen a lot of interventions, the discussions and good comments provided by the participants, which would be very useful for us to shape how we are going to shape the forest food system for better food security and nutrition in this region. And we are also looking forward to more collaborations, with different partners who have participated in this meeting, and also other potential partners in the bigger community. So I look forward to more work in this area to promote forest foods for improving food security and nutrition in this region. So thank you very much for your participation in this 3 days meeting. So over to you, Stephen.
Thanks a lot. And as you can see, also in FAO, we have so many different department, regional offices. So this type of workshop also helps us actually to bridge, which we don't need with Korea, because with Nara, we have a very good collaboration. So thanks for always facilitating our work in the region. Nara, any final words from your side?
No, I'll be very fast. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to be able to moderate some sessions as well to support from our end. And also thank you so much for our teams at headquarters as well as our colleagues at the regional office. So at least I'll look forward to following up with all the related topics that we've discussed so far, and also especially supporting to share our case experience, because we talked a lot about our case experience, especially focusing on the statistics part. And I would love to actually follow on, provide necessary support. And again, it was last but not least, I'd love to echo thanking the Korea Forest Service for co-organizing the event. Thank you everyone for your contribution and dedication.
Okay, and yeah, we talked a lot about statistics. So from our team, thanks to Simona here in Rome for the statistics work she's doing for us. We have, of course, Diego and Clara here but I would like to give the final words to Julia, because she was the mastermind behind that event, reaching out to all of you. And so thanks a lot from my side to you, Julia, for having organized the event. I hope you are pleased with the performance of our participants and the speakers. Over to you for some final reflections from your side, Julia.
Thank you, Sven. Very pleased. I think it was really a positive experience, and sometimes at headquarters we sort of lose touch with what's going on in the ground. So it's been really useful to really see what everyone's up to and to share some of those lessons. I learned a lot as well. So thank you to all the presenters and to all the speakers. I joined FAO 16 years ago, and I feel like sometimes we're always trying to make a case for these foods and these products. I do think the time is right. I think, well, the nutrition world is certainly listening. This focus now on nutrients versus calories, I think, puts us in a good position to really keep making our case. I feel like we always have to make our case, but now I think we have more evidence, and we certainly have more momentum. And yeah, really just looking forward to continuing after this workshop to make sure it doesn't end here, but actually starts here. So thank you to all very much for your contributions.
No, thank you. And we will keep the momentum, and that I think Julia, it was a warning to the participants that she may continue reaching out to you and chasing you in the positive sense, so that we actually move ahead in order to optimize also our support to our members and to the countries, because that's our job and that's what we would like to see, and we would all like to see impact on the ground. So with this, I wish you, most of you, a very nice evening. I wish us a good day, and we will get back to you with the draft proceedings, the workshop report. So you will have an opportunity there to have a look, and then I do hope that we can use that network also to continue the reflections and move ahead jointly. Thanks again, and have a good day. Bye bye. Cheers.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank
Have a
you.
good rest.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, bye.
Thank
Bye
you,
bye.
everyone. Bye bye.